and thank you for making the time to join the investor webinar for the Water and Energy for Food Grand Challenge. We're excited to have you on this call. So a few housekeeping points before we get started. On mute, and in case you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. We have left enough time at the end of the webinar to get to your questions. And also, please note that the webinar is being recorded and that it will be shared on the WE4F website, our YouTube channel, and on other social media platforms as well. All right, so now that we've gotten through the few housekeeping notes, allow me to introduce the brokering unit for the WE4F Southern Central Africa Regional Innovations Hub. So my name is Auleli Makondo, and I am the investment facilitator for the Southern and Central Regional Hub. The brokering unit, which is essentially the investment facilitation team, is facilitated by Open Capital Advisors. And Open Capital Advisors is a financial advisory and management consulting firm that focuses on advancing African economies. So we've worked and we're continuing to work in over 25 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. And we currently have offices in Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, and Zambia. Just to speak a little bit more about who we are, our clients and our work. Our clients fall into four broad categories. These are small and medium enterprises, large corporates, investors, and development partners. And over the past 10 years, we've grown to a staff of over 150 professionals, and we've worked on 1,000 engagements and helped companies or mobilize about $1 billion in capital across the African continent. I will pause here and allow my colleague Chris to introduce himself before we get into the agenda and the details of our discussion today.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Auleli mentioned, my name is Chris Mrema, and I am a principal at Open Capital, and I'm very excited to be on the call with you guys to present the WE4F program and in particular the brokering unit. So just a quick background on myself. I've been in the financial advisory and management consulting field for over 20 years. And in that time, I've helped companies ranging in size from multi-billion-dollar multinationals to small, 100,000 in revenue African companies raise billions and billions of dollars cumulatively. And I can safely say that in that time, I've seen almost every scenario that you can think of when it comes to raising capital. So I'm looking forward to providing you more information about our program and how we can work together to help these very exciting innovators access capital and hopefully grow into big and mature companies. I'll be back to you.
All right, thank you so much, Chris, for that. So for our call today, we are going to go through four broad topics. So firstly, outline why we're here and what we're looking to get from this webinar, and by giving a short summary of what the Water and Energy for Food program is and the role that the brokering unit plays in this program. Then Chris will talk about how the brokering unit sort of fits into the entire program and how you as an investor or a partner can get involved to support the innovators to achieve scale and impact. Chris will also talk about the type of investors that the program is looking to attract and how, together with the brokering unit, we'll be onboarding investors as we work towards deploying capital into the pipeline of innovators that we have. And thirdly, we'll give you a glimpse of the type of innovators that we're working with, and the kind of impacts they're looking to achieve. And lastly, we'll wrap up the call with a tactical discussion of the application process for the EOI. Here we'll cover things like the application process for the EOI, the timelines, and the considerations that we'll be making when evaluating potential applications from interested investors that we'll be looking to onboard. So our goal today really is to help you, the investors, learn more about the WE4F program, address any questions that you may have, and get you excited about the possibilities that exist within the program. So moving on to who we are. It's a multi-donor program founded by several different donor partners. So these include the European Union, USAID, CEDA, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the Netherlands. The program is a global program with several hubs in different regions. We represent the Southern and Central Africa regional hub. Broadly, the program aims to increase the social and environmental impact for organizations and stakeholders operating in the food and water nexus. These organizations producing innovative products or providing services that allow farmers and other stakeholders in the food value chain to produce more food while using water and energy more efficiently. And the support takes the shape of technical assistance and investment facilitation with the objective to help these businesses achieve growth in revenues, sales, growth in returns for potential investors, and increase their social and environmental impact. Speaking specifically about the Southern Central Africa hub, we operate in 12 countries. These are countries shown below on the slide with the light blue shading. Our goal over the next couple of years as the Southern and Central Regional Hub is to support at least 30 innovators by providing them with technical assistance to help improve their investment readiness and scale, or provide transaction advisory services by being an intermediary between the innovator and the capital providers. This should ultimately translate into deploying about 7.5 million into highly scalable businesses. We are also keen, and as part of the mission of the program, to incorporate cross-cutting themes in these investments, such as gender equality, environmental sustainability, and economic mobility for the low-income segments, or the base of the pyramid. This would ultimately translate into supporting the innovators reach over 1 million smallholder farmers, with about 25% of those being women. Let us now talk a little more about the brokering unit, which is the investment facilitation team of the hub, and how we fit into the program. So in addition to coordinating connections between the capital seekers and the capital providers, we also offer tailored investment advisory support. And we see our value add to investors in that we can help reduce your origination or your upfront costs by supporting deal origination, helping mitigate any information asymmetries between the capital provider and the capital seeker. And Chris will talk more about this as we go along. So in line with what I've just said, our mandate, or the mandate of the brokering unit, is to first mobilize private capital for the selected WE4F cohort companies. So over the past year and over the next few years, we will be building a pipeline of companies that are a good fit from the perspective of WE4F's mission, as well as commercial viability. So the brokering unit is working closely with several other units in the hub, such as the technical assistance team, who provides technical assistance support to selected innovators. With the TA team, we tailor our technical assistance to increase the innovators' investment readiness. Then the BU comes in and provides end-to-end transaction advisory services, including structuring financing options, developing investor materials such as teaser, financial models, information memorandums, and supporting with negotiations and the like. Our second mandate is to promote and mobilize ESG-focused investments. Across our investments, we're ensuring that we integrate things such as gender mainstreaming, impact for the best of the pyramid, and environmental sustainability into the investment decision-making processes. Our third mandate is to reduce barriers for investments for SMEs in the water and food nexus. While we're working with the enabling environment unit, we aim to understand the macro and regulatory environment in geographies where these innovators reside. We're also ensuring we're applying an investment lens that encompasses gender equality, environmental, and best of the pyramid impacts. And our fourth mandate is to unlock and improve access to end user financing mechanisms for the WE4F innovators. Again, while working closely with the technical assistance team, which is supporting the innovators with commercial TA. This includes things like providing a business plan, business strategy, market research, or streamlining their HR and internal processes. On the other hand, we'll be looking to support companies with developing or refining their business model. In some cases, that could incorporate end user financing mechanism and help design, what those products could look like. So to wrap up this section, I would like to mention that we have done 2 solicitations so far, and we are in the process of finalizing our second one. We intend to have a minimum of 30 carefully curated innovators, and these are companies that are generally established with a proven track record and have potential to scale highly. And not what you may be termed as early stage or incubator stage or R&D phase organizations. So I mention this because if you affiliate with the hub through this EOI, we plan to hopefully work with us for the rest of the program. You'll be getting access to a replenished and growing pipeline of such companies with at least commercial and macro level due diligence completed before these investment opportunities are shared with you. I will now pass it on to Chris to run us through how investor partners can get involved in the program.
Hello, and as Olelio has been mentioning throughout this presentation, we have, the 4 main objectives. I think you need to go to the next slide. One is identify investment partners, and that's the main objective of this call. Is hopefully we get you excited about the potential here and show you how we work, and you are thrilled and excited about the potential to work with these very exciting innovators. Then number 2 is to define the onboarding process for interested investment partners. So how do you get involved? Number 3 is to catalyze commercial investment, and this is where we bring in the grant mechanism, the private-public partnership mechanism to catalyze the commercial investment. And then number 3 is to, as Olelio mentioned before, is to ensure that the cross-cutting themes, gender mainstreaming, base of the pyramid impact, and environmental sustainability are integrated into the investment decisions. So on a tactical level, what do this mean? So when we say identify potential partners, investment partners, what we're talking about here is we're looking at a broad range of capital providers who may be interested in investing in this region, including commercial investors, banks, impact-oriented investors, other lenders, and blended finance providers, such as government institutions. But it's important that if you are a capital provider who has responded to this EOI, you're not obligated to participate. The EOI is to just let you know of the possibilities, and all that we're doing is we're asking you that when you consider deploying capital into these opportunities that are interesting to you, you join the database, and then that way you'll get access to all the pipeline and the information that we as a broker unit will be sharing with potential investors. The next thing is, how do we onboard you and as investment partners? So onboarding in this case means adding the investors, into a database, as I mentioned before, give you access to the pipeline, and you receive regular updates about our pipeline companies, and in the form of teasers. And then, as already mentioned, these companies that we'll be sharing with you will already have been curated, and initial level of due diligence performed by us and the technical assistance unit in order to make sure that we are matching you as the investor with the appropriate innovators that we feel will be most attractive to you, and vice versa. So catalyzing commercial investment, as we mentioned, the goal here is the collaborative review approaches that will allow the hub to deploy the maximum amount of capital based on the risk appetites, geographical mandate, and impact potential from the investors. So once again, repeating the theme here, the structure is, we're agnostic in terms of the structure. So it could be equity, it could be debt, it could be mezzanine, it could be blended finance. But of course, these vary from case to case. And then last but not least is, one of the mandates of the WE4F is to make sure that we're mainstreaming, and intentionally integrating these ESG themes. And it's not that they're afterthoughts, that, these are themes that are considered from the beginning when the investment decisions are made. So that way, gender mainstreaming is not an afterthought. Same thing with base of the pyramid impact and environmental sustainability. Next page. So while the page is loading up, the theme that we keep repeating over and over again here is that our main mission is to reduce the transactional friction that usually hinders or slows down many transactions, right? So we are involved from the beginning and stay engaged throughout the process till the end. So from origination all the way through to value realization. And our main focus is truly to remove or reduce barriers, and working with our partners in the technical assistance unit and the engagement unit to reduce these transactions, whether they be transaction particular or macro or regulatory. So the broker unit in this case is integral in the selection of the innovators, and therefore the investment lens is one of the key criteria for selecting the innovators that we'll be working with. So as part of the hub, and then after the investors are selected, we work very closely with the technical assistance unit to close the gaps in capabilities that the innovators may have in order to increase their investment readiness. So we do the initial analysis, then we collaboratively with the technical assistance unit, we come up with an action plan for resolving, because as you can imagine, most of these companies have some capability and capacity gaps that need to be closed before they can be presented in front of investors. One of the key gaps that Olele mentioned earlier is, for example, actually a fair number of these innovators don't have a business model that, they have it in their head, but it's not quite been translated into a financial model or a deck that can then be presented with to investors. From the capital sourcing side, we help identify, the ideal capital structure and help position, the company or innovator in this case for investment. So we take the financial model from the business plan, and then we try to see what happens to that business plan should a different kinds of structuring be used to finance the company. Then we stay with the deal after it's launched and work with investors to, as the way we see ourselves is we're neutral arbiters, intermediaries in terms of bringing together the innovator with investors. And then, as we stay engaged, we help with facilitation and logistics, and even managing external service providers such as legal counsel, and using our broad network of these service providers to suggest some providers that both parties may be able to use. So, and not to brag a little bit here, but I will in any case. As Lelu mentioned earlier, Open Capital has been doing this for over 10 years, and we have raised over $1 billion in this market. So there's some bona fides there. Over to the next slide. So while the slide is loading once again, in terms of the value add that you'll be getting out of affiliating with this particular hub. So us as the BU unit, as we mentioned before, we lower your upfront cost by decreasing your sourcing costs. So we come in, we present you with as already mentioned before, a carefully selected and curated pipeline of the innovative and investment ready companies, and by the time you start engaging with these innovators, we've either closed the capability gap, or are in the process of closing the gap, and we have an action plan to execute that will get you there. So you can have it mitigates some of the risks that you would have if you went out there and sourced the companies yourselves. And we're also collaborating closely, as you mentioned earlier, with the enabling environment unit to monitor the macro environment as well as the regulatory environment to identify and communicate where the potential hurdles may exist in the 12 or so markets that our innovators operate in. So this is work that normally you would have to do yourselves or outsource it to somebody else. In this case, it's provided to you free of charge. Secondly, reduce the information asymmetry by looking at ourselves as I mentioned before, neutral intermediaries. We perform the appropriate amount of sell-side, commercial, and financial due diligence. We organize the data room in a way that will allow you to be very efficient at analyzing the potential and the risks of the company. And most importantly, we have direct access to the management, and we've built rapport over time with this management, so that you and as an investor, you can interact with them and reduce that initial trust issues that usually come up, in the pipeline analysis. In this case, as I said before, the pipeline has already been prepared, and usually when we communicate the potential investment targets to the investor, we are considering all the things that you would consider in terms of geographical focus, ticket size, impact story, etc., etc. And all this is to say that we, the goal here is to de-risk the investment potential from your perspective, so that you can make your judgment from a more comfortable point of view and look at it more from a fundamental point of view as well. So, for example, if you're a lender and an impact investor, but you still can't get comfortable with a certain deal, and you'd really like to have subordinate debt type that to be brought underneath the senior tranche, that is something we can cast a wide net into our network and look for other investors, perhaps guarantee providers that we can bring into the deal, reducing that risk profile once again from your perspective. And we also have access to grants that the WE4F program has access to, and once again, those can provide some safety net from a first loss perspective, where then that would allow you as investor to as I said, once again, look at these innovators in a different light. Last but not least, we have an extensive network of investors, and the fact that we also have our 4 donors, and they have resources with their own other adjacent and complementary programs in the region, and these we have access to these programs, and thus as a result of that, we are able to multiply and have an extensive network that we can access. Next slide. So, as we all know, when it comes to investment transactions, we usually need, other service providers. So the point of this chart here is to illustrate the general relationship that we as broker unit would have with the service providers such as legal counsel, etc., and how the broker unit would be facilitating, it would be the lead investment facilitation entity that would help manage and vet some of these providers, and you would not have to do it. So once again, going back to the theme of reducing transaction friction, we do the kind of work that you would have to do yourselves. So making it easier for you to focus on the key tasks that would hopefully lead to investments into these innovators. Next slide. So I'd like to offer some thoughts around how the broker unit is going to interact with some of the different potential respondents to this EOE. So here, this slide is meant to show that the investment facilitation process in action. The WE4F program is providing the pre-funded services for free, as we mentioned before, such as transaction advisory and technical assistance. The broker unit is looking to affect outcomes at the deal level. So, this is the dotted line, dotted box over there. And on the left-hand side, there's a wide range of types of investors that we're interacting with. That some categories may not be fully represented here, but the idea is that we work with these direct providers of capital, whether they're commercial, impact first, lenders, or donors, etc., etc. So if there's capital in the form of a grant that's being structured as part of a blended finance solution, and if there's capital coming from an organization into the commercial investor, we would help with structuring that financing solution. So as I said, once again, we look at ourselves as enablers and the entity that will make sure that the right, to use a metaphor, we see ourselves as being more than marriage counselor and matchmakers, but sort of like, and the priests. So you can think of all the roles that are involved in making sure that it's a successful marriage. Next slide. And we've noticed over the last few years that blended finance solutions have becoming more and more popular. So the way we look at our hub is we look at it as it's a blended finance solution. So what we mean by that is that we provide, our goal is to provide transaction advisory and commercial TA to increase investment into the company, regardless of the structuring. So we're structure agnostic, and the main goal here is that we want to crowd in providers of different kinds of capital, so that we can unlock the potential that we believe exists within these innovators. So the left-hand side is to say that we provide all the preparatory steps, while meanwhile, as we're doing that, it allows us to more accurately identify the appropriate structure that would allow the companies to both unlock its growth potential, as well as investors to get excited about these innovators and lean into invest into them. Next slide. So repetition of the theme. So just to make sure that once again you don't miss the point. When we talk about blended finance, our finance is essentially investment matching capital. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a grant funding at our disposal that we can deploy at our discretion into these deals to help unlock their commercial capital. So we're flexible when it comes to deploying these funds into a deal. And in this case, flexibility means that we can be quite agile in how we deploy these funds, so that we make sure that the investor is leaning into the investment, as I mentioned earlier. So if there's in this case, if the grant would unlock some capital match in the future, then that's something that we have been empowered to do, and we can discuss that with investor and to make sure that we are unlocking the innovator's potential. Not to belabor the theme, but the goal here is once again to make sure that the investor is excited about the potential of the innovators, while providing the innovators with the capital structure that will allow them to unlock that growth potential that we believe in. So structuring, investment facilitation, all these activities that we've been talking about thus far, the goal is once again to get you as the investor comfortable and excited about these companies, so that you are looking to invest into them and you're looking to grow with them into the future. And that now Olelo will take us through the rest of the presentation, and looking forward to hearing from some of you in the Q&A section.
Great, and thank you, Chris, for that. So we will now talk about the kind of companies that we have on our portfolio and what they look like. We will be specifically talking about, who they are, their traction to date, their growth plans, and the impacts that they're looking to achieve. We'll start with Solar Village. So Solar Village was founded in 2018, and the company sells solar-powered, water-efficient sprayers to rural smallholder farmers, and these sprayers come with a battery stick. The sprayers have been developed specifically for the African smallholder farmer, and they are highly labor and water saving. And since they come with a battery stick, the stick is often used as a source of power for the population in the off-grid. Population in the off-grid, sorry about that. For the population in the off-grid, for use with household appliances such as lamps, TVs, radios, and fans, which are popular for smallholder farmers living on the off-grid. Solar Village has also partnered with quite a number of agribusinesses, agri-processors in Zambia, and through them they've been able to reach over 60,000 smallholder farmers. And going forward, the company is looking to scale its current model, across Zambia and the Southern Central Africa region. Moving on to one of our innovators as well. This one is called Zonfu. They were founded in 2013 and they started operations in 2017. So Zonfu is a for-profit social enterprise that sells modular, decentralized, scalable solar energy systems on a pay-as-you-go model, mostly to the rural, urban, and peri-urban off-grid consumers in Zimbabwe. So their mission really is to help reduce energy poverty in Zimbabwe by offering renewable energy that is both inexpensive and accessible to the off-grid population. So since inception, the company has sold over 50,000 units. It has set up distribution centers in 5 provinces, which mostly has been driven by demand for energy. And they have built a strong brand, and due to their customer service and quality product offering. In terms of growth plans, the company is looking to expand across all provinces in Zimbabwe and, add to their product offering, as well as expand geographically into the Southern African market. So they're looking to do this by setting up distribution centers that will allow their customers to and ensure that their customers can access the products quite timely. Moving on to the next company. So this one is called Komako, and Komako is a social enterprise that supports small-scale farmers and wildlife preservation in Zambia. So Komako supports agroforestry-based farming, which minimizes fertilizer usage and increases nutrition, food supply, as well as income prospects for the smallholder farmers. They also produce foods under the brand called It's Wild that include peanut butter, rice, dried fruits, mushrooms, and the like. So Komako offers training and offers training mostly to smallholder farmers, and it conducts assessments in exchange for conservation dividend payments to encourage the outgrow farmer cooperatives and enterprises to practice conservation activities. Moving on to our next one. So our next one is Langfos Energy. So Langfos Energy is a woman-led, for-profit social enterprise that is selling biogas digesters and clean cooking solutions to the population of Zimbabwe on a pay-as-you-go model. So their main clients are usually rural communities, small to medium scale farmers, organizations, and businesses that are looking to make the transition to the use of clean energy, especially for cooking. So to date, the company has had a growth rate of about 33%. That is the compounded annual growth rate of about 33%, and have more than doubled their revenues in the last 3 years. They've sold over 4,000 units, and that has translated into eliminating about 36,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. They also plan to scale their model across the country and the region. Our next company is called PowerLife, which is also a for-profit, a woman-led for-profit social enterprise that's providing clean energy solutions in form of solar home systems and irrigation pumps to the population in Zimbabwe. So since inception, PowerLife has maintained a 73% retention rate, that's making growth and their expansion reasonably quicker. So they have distribution points in 2 provinces in Zimbabwe. and they're looking to expand their model across the country and the region. So that was just like a quick overview of the companies that we are working with. We'll kind of move on to the next section of our discussion, which is an overview of the investor EOI submission processes. So we launched the investor EOI in November of 2021, and we have been soliciting for responses from investors. And I should be quick to note that, soliciting responses from investors is happening and will be happening on a rolling basis. So there is no finite window to apply, right? We then review the applications and select a group of investors that should become affiliated with the hub. And then this will result into what would be characterized as the pre-qualification stage. And this means that you're on the regular receiving updates from about our pipeline, and that you're becoming, and that and these will be coming in the form of one pages about the companies or teasers on a rolling basis. So it's important to not hear one more time that we will have built a strong relationship with the companies and assess their investment readiness for these teasers and investment opportunities are shared with you. Would like to walk through this slide fairly quickly. So what is required for the EOI submission? One is the offer overview, which is just a company overview describing what you as an organization does, so that we have some basic information. These can include things like your name and a summary of your services. So would also like to get an authorized point of contact, who would be the person with whom we have direct contact with initially, but it doesn't have to be the person that we would eventually work with on a deal, or an initial point, just like an initial point of contact. In terms of capacity for making or catalyzing potential investments, this is the most important thing. We wouldn't want to make this burdensome. We want this to be very much something that you would get excited about. So as it provides you with access to a vetted pipeline of companies. So we just want some information around your preferred ticket sizes, your investment lens, your instruments, your geographical scope. We're willing, and if you're willing and you can, disclose what your target returns are, that would be great to know as well. So the goal here is to, understand fit and make sure that we are mutually aligned. And we would then ask for a brief cover statement. It does not need to be long, but it would help us firm our understanding of the organizations. Right. This part is optional. So if you have material prepared already, such as an overview or a company profile, please feel free to attach that. Again, it is not mandatory, and not sending this supplementary material will not harm your chances of being affiliated with the hub. And finally, we would like to touch a bit on the investor selection criteria. So here we're going to walk through how we are going to assess the applicants. So we've laid out three broad terms. So the idea, the idea of the themes are that, one, we want to know what agricultural value chains, energy, agrotech, or other innovative approaches to agriculture sector are a part of your general investment lens. We'd also want to get an understanding, or we would like to know that you're willing to engage in what we hope to be a multi-year and robust relationship. with the hub and, with our community and our ecosystems. So there is some fine print, at the bottom, which is also in the Investor UI document. So would like to receive the application in English. They should be submitted online via the SurveyMonkey platform. And if you're not able to submit through the SurveyMonkey platform, we're happy to jump on a call with you and, take down the details from there. The link to the SurveyMonkey platform is in the EOI, and there is also an email that will be shared and a phone number where you can reach out for a phone call application. So I am going to pause here, and we are happy to take on any questions. And thank you again so much for making the time to join the EOI for investors.